She looked me dead in the eye and smirked. "You, CEO. You're just a good assistant." That sentence sliced through me sharper than any blade. No yelling, no scene. I just nodded and started building. Every night while she slept in her corner office, I stayed up learning code, pitching investors, and designing a product she was too arrogant to see coming. 1 year later, my company went public. Her board called me in, and I walked into her office not with coffee in hand, but with the paperwork that would remove her name from the door. I never had to prove anything to her. But I did prove one thing. You can't kill ambition with a smug smile. I used to be the invisible woman in the glass tower, the one who held the elevator door, booked flights at midnight, and brought oat milk lattes to a woman who barely remembered my name. Rebecca Stone, CEO of Signia Technologies, the kind of woman whose heels clicked louder than your voice, and whose glance could make interns quit on the spot. To her, I was Lisa, the assistant, efficient, quiet, disposable. But I watched everything. I memorized the way she negotiated with VCs. I saw which features made investors lean in and which made them look bored. I kept records of failed launches, false starts, internal gossip, and budget leaks. Not because I planned to use them. At first, I was just curious. But curiosity becomes clarity, clarity becomes hunger, and hunger doesn't stay quiet for long. It started with a sketch, an idea for a lightweight AI system that could automate financial reporting for small businesses. While she dismissed that market as not worth the effort, I saw a gold mine. Millions of mom-and-pop shops drowning in spreadsheets and receipts, praying for something simpler. I stayed up late, downloaded free white papers, online courses, and watched demos until 3 a.m. When she left at 5, I stayed until 9. One Monday morning, I gathered all my notes, wrapped them in a sleek deck, and slid it onto her desk. No expectations, just a chance, a moment for her to see me as more than the girl who ordered gluten-free muffins. Later that afternoon, she called me in. I stood there hopeful, breathless like a kid who'd just turned in her first novel. She didn't even look up. She flipped through 2 slides, scoffed, and said, "You're sweet, Lisa, but this isn't CEO-level thinking. You're better off sticking to logistics." The words sank in slow, CEO-level thinking, like it was a secret code I'd never be allowed to crack. I nodded, smiled, walked out. And that night, I did what she never expected. I opened a new tab, searched for how to register a business in California, and with trembling fingers, I typed the name Novacore Labs. It felt like lighting a match in a dark room, small, but blinding. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the confirmation email, heart racing like I'd jumped off a cliff. The next day, I was back at work. Same heels, same coffee, same fake smile. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't building her dream anymore. I was building mine, and she had no idea what was coming. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine started quietly, with warm coffee in one hand and silent fire in my chest. After registering Novacore Labs, I spent every spare minute crafting. I still showed up to work at Signia like nothing had changed, but everything inside me had. I rented a tiny studio in North Park. Cracked walls, one window, a desk I built myself. That desk became my battlefield. By day, I fetched Rebecca's dry cleaning. By night, I wrote code, drafted pitch decks, and studied every failure I'd watched from the sidelines. I knew what didn't work. I'd seen it firsthand, and now I knew what would. My idea was simple, a plug-and-play AI financial system that could automate accounting and cash flow tracking for small businesses. It would be lean, accessible, and actually make sense to business owners who didn't have a finance degree. I called it Prism. No bells, no flashy branding, just a clean dashboard, smart predictions, and one-click reports. Exactly what I knew Rebecca would have thrown away as not scalable enough. But I wasn't building for her. I was building for the people she never saw, the little guys. At night, I posted on Reddit forums, answered questions on Quora, left thoughtful comments in Facebook business groups. I didn't pitch, I helped. And slowly, quietly, people started asking, "What's Prism?" Just one question, then 5, then 50. The first time someone emailed me asking if I had a pricing plan, I cried, alone, in my apartment, in the dark. Not because of the money, but because someone finally saw me, not as the assistant, but as the architect. I poured every cent I had into building a working MVP, skipped dinners, canceled birthdays. I became the ghost of every social circle I had, and I loved it. 3 months in, I had 30 beta users. By month 5, I got a DM from a tech angel in San Francisco. "I saw your post on a forum, want to talk?" His name was Julian Pike. He had funded 3 major SaaS companies and liked gritty founders with something to prove. We spoke for 1 hour, and at the end of that call, he said, "I'll wire you $500,000. Don't waste it." I almost forgot how to breathe. I stared at my phone, shaking. $500,000 to build something real. I quit my job at Signia that Friday. Rebecca didn't even flinch. She signed the HR form with barely a glance. "Good luck out there," she said, almost bored, and I smiled, because I knew luck had nothing to do with what was coming. With Julian's funding, I hired a small remote team, just 4 people at first, a UX designer from Oregon, a full-stack dev from Michigan, a growth hacker who lived in her van. We worked like maniacs. 4 time zones, 1 dream. We launched the full version of Prism in under 4 months. Clean, beautiful, powerful. And then, something wild happened. TechCrunch picked us up. The anti-Signia, how Novacore's Prism is changing financial AI from the bottom up. They didn't even know the connection. They didn't know I used to brew coffee in the Signia break room, that I used to cry in bathroom stalls after being called not sharp enough. Now, they were calling me a rising star in functional AI. I laughed, not out of pride, but because of how fast the world changes when you stop asking for permission. Soon, users were pouring in. Monthly revenue hit 30K by our 7th month. We weren't a unicorn, but we were dangerous. And Rebecca still didn't know it was me, until one morning, I got a forwarded email from an old friend who still worked at Signia. It was an internal memo. "Please analyze Novacore Labs and prepare competitive benchmarks for Prism." I stared at the screen and whispered, "Now you see me?" But the best part, they had no idea I was already in the room. Because just 2 weeks later, Signia's board reached out to me. They wanted innovation, fresh thinking, a younger vision for where the company could go next. They asked if I'd be willing to consult. I said yes, but not as a consultant, not as a guest. I had another plan. One that would bring me right back into Rebecca's world. Not as her assistant, but as her shadow. The one thing she never thought she'd see, a rival she created with her own cruelty. The air inside Signia's headquarters hadn't changed. Same sterile white walls, same echo of stilettos clicking across the tile. But I had changed. This time, I wasn't there to refill anyone's coffee. I was there to assess, to advise, to quietly take back every ounce of power I had once given away. The invitation came through their board of directors. They framed it as a strategic advisory engagement, but what it really meant was Rebecca was losing control. Their stock had dipped, product pipelines delayed, and Rebecca's recent public speaking disasters didn't help either. Investors were whispering, and boards, they don't like whispers. They like confidence. And confidence, it turns out, now had my name. When I stepped into that boardroom again, the room froze. Half of them didn't recognize me. The other half remembered, but couldn't quite place me. Rebecca was late. Of course she was. She always liked to make an entrance. I stood at the head of the table. My slides were ready, my metrics, my wins, my roadmap all laid out with precision. Prism had grown 370% in user adoption over the last quarter alone. Our churn rate under 2%. Signia's numbers didn't look half as pretty. Finally, the door opened. Rebecca swept in, sharp-shouldered and sharp-tongued as ever. She froze when she saw me. Her lips parted. 1 second, 2. Then she regained her poise and sat down across from me. "Lisa," she said slowly, I Didn't realize you were leading this? I smiled, not wide, just enough. You must have missed the email. I sent the agenda myself. She didn't respond, but I saw it in her eyes. Recognition and fear. The meeting began. I walked them through Prism's infrastructure, our success with small and mid-tier clients, and our plans to enter B2B SaaS integrations. Signia had none of that. They were still stuck in enterprise-only cycles, rigid, slow, predictable. One board member, a woman named Karen Lopez, leaned forward. And if we were to explore a merger? The room buzzed. Rebecca's face went pale. Novacore's culture isn't compatible, she snapped. It's too scrappy. Too unfinished. I leaned in, voice calm. Sometimes what you call unfinished is just evolving faster than you. Silence. After the meeting, Rebecca caught me in the hallway. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just said, "You planned this, didn't you? This whole damn thing." I met her eyes. "No, Rebecca, you did. Every time you told me I wasn't enough, that I didn't belong. You built this." She laughed bitterly. "You'll never survive board politics. They eat founders alive." "Maybe," I said, "but I built my company on truth and utility, not vanity metrics." She turned away. And in that moment, I knew she understood something she'd never admit. She underestimated the wrong girl. Weeks passed. The board invited me to a second meeting, then a third. I was now part of their strategic review process. Rebecca had no say. They had put her on probation, quietly. One Friday morning, I received a sealed letter. It was from Signia's chairman. They were removing Rebecca as CEO, and they were offering me the role interim at first. I stared at it for a long time. The same office where I once ordered takeout and emptied trash bins was now mine to command. I didn't jump for joy. I didn't cry. I just whispered, full circle. When I walked into the CEO office that Monday, it was empty. Rebecca had cleared out. No goodbyes, no messages, just silence. I sat down, touched the polished desk, breathed in deep. Then I opened my laptop and started writing the next chapter. Power doesn't announce itself with a bang. Sometimes it arrives in silence disguised as clarity. And sitting behind Rebecca's old desk, I felt none of the noise I expected. No celebration, no champagne, just a strange, haunting stillness. The first email I sent as interim CEO of Signia wasn't about quarterly earnings. It was to every junior employee in the company. Subject line, "Your voice matters." I invited them to submit anonymous thoughts about what was broken and what we could fix. By the end of the day, I had 138 replies. Some were angry, others confused. Many were heartbreaking. I haven't had a performance review in 3 years. We've been afraid to speak in meetings. No one ever asked what we think. I spent that whole weekend reading them. All of them. Because I remembered what it felt like to be invisible. To scream quietly behind a smile. And I swore no one under my leadership would feel that way again. The first change I made wasn't radical. I opened the blinds. Literally. Rebecca always kept the windows sealed, the curtains drawn tight like her posture. But I wanted light and laughter and life. We hosted open forum Fridays. No suits, no scripts, just honest talk. I watched people unfold like paper flowers in the sun. Then I called my team at Novacore. We set up integration models between Prism and Signia's legacy platforms. 2 weeks later, productivity metrics improved by 24%. I didn't say a word to the press. I didn't grant interviews. I just let the numbers speak. But people noticed. Forbes ran a headline from assistant to alpha Lisa Tran's quiet takeover. LinkedIn exploded with connections. Old colleagues reached out, some apologetic, some opportunistic. But I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because I was busy rebuilding what had been hollowed out by ego. Then came the investor summit. My first as CEO. And the first time Rebecca would be in the audience. I saw her, sitting in the third row, arms crossed, chin up, eyes narrowed. I walked on stage, no slides, no clicker, just me. A year ago, I began. I was invisible to this company. Now, I lead it, not because I fought louder, but because I built smarter. Gasps, Murmurs. I could feel the shift. I outlined a 3-year roadmap, transparent, inclusive, and rooted in actual customer data. Not vanity KPIs, real usage, real retention, real returns. By the end, they were on their feet. Rebecca was gone before I stepped off stage, but the message had landed. That night, I walked alone back to my apartment. Same place, still modest, still mine. I stood in front of my mirror, looked at the girl who used to practice smiling for job interviews, and whispered, "We're not done yet." Over the next 2 months, I proposed something no one expected: merge Signia into Novacore. Not the other way around. My board pushed back. It's unprecedented. One said, "You'll make enemies," said another. But I didn't flinch, because I didn't come this far to be cautious. We initiated talks, quiet, tense, loaded, and then agreement. Novacore would acquire Signia's assets. Signia would become a division under the Novacore umbrella. My name would remain at the top, but more importantly, so would my values. The merger hit headlines like a storm. The girl who took over her boss's empire. Silent ambition, how Lisa Tran reshaped Silicon Beach. They all wanted a quote. So I gave them one. You don't have to shout to shake the world. Sometimes, the quiet ones are the architects. And just like that, the girl once deemed unworthy had become the one they couldn't ignore. It's strange, isn't it? How the world stops doubting you the moment you stop asking for permission? I wasn't just the CEO anymore. I had become the storm they never saw coming. But even after the merger was sealed, after every article was written, there was still one thing I hadn't done, something I'd carried like a stone in my chest since the beginning. I never said goodbye to the girl who once believed being small was her destiny. So I returned, not to the boardroom, but to the office storage closet on the 11th floor, the one where I used to cry during lunch breaks. It smelled the same. Dust, printer ink, and faint lemon cleaner. I stood there, hands folded, letting the silence wrap around me, and I whispered, "She was wrong about you. That part of me. The bruised version. The one who bowed her head and made herself smaller. She earned this. She survived." I walked out, slow and tall, and from that moment, I stopped looking back. Novacore was no longer a startup. It was a movement. We scaled Prism into 3 new sectors. We launched mentorship initiatives for young women in tech. And for every Lisa out there who was told she was too soft, too quiet, or not CEO material, we built a platform. But Rebecca, she didn't disappear. I saw her once, at a conference in New York. She was walking through the lobby, designer heels, flawless makeup still pretending the world hadn't changed. She spotted me, hesitated, then kept walking. I didn't chase her, didn't need to, because revenge was never really the point. The point was becoming undeniable, and I had done that. Months later, I received an email from her former assistant. It simply read, "Thank you for surviving her. You gave the rest of us hope." I stared at that line for a long time, and for the first time, I cried. Not from pain, but from relief. Because I finally understood success isn't just about what you build. It's about what you heal, what you rewrite. I spent my final quarter as CEO of the merged company overseeing a leadership transition. I wanted to step back, not because I was tired, but because I had done what I came to do. I had changed the narrative. The new CEO was a woman I'd mentored. Fierce, ethical, strategic. I handed her the office keys one cool spring morning. She asked if I wanted to stay on the board. I said yes, but remotely. I had another chapter to write. Now I travel, speak, invest in young founders. And every time I walk into a startup incubator and see a girl standing off to the side, holding a notebook too tightly, I walk up to her and I say, "Tell me what you're building." Because someone once should have asked me that and didn't. And if you think this is where my story ends, you haven't been paying attention. I'm still building, still dreaming, still watching the world underestimate the quiet ones, and still proving that we were never meant to stay quiet forever.